Steffy Forrester and Sheila Carter. The night begins still at the Precipice house where Steffy lives with her hubby John Finn Finnegan, but beneath the calm face lies an atmosphere thick with dread, because Steffy has lately learned that Sheila has been intimately watching their family again. For months Steffy tried to ignore the possibility that the notorious villain might return to terrify her life, yet deep down she knew that Sheila no way truly disappears. Sheila's preoccupation with Finn, her natural son, has always driven her to dangerous acts, and every time she resurfaces the consequences come more violent. Before that day, Steffy entered a cryptic communication from an unknown number containing a print of Finn playing with their child, taken from a distance outside the house. The recrimination was chillingly clear someone was watching them, and Steffy incontinently suspected Sheila. Finn tried to assure his woman, averring that his mama wouldn't dare approach them again after everything that had happened, but Steffy's instincts told her else. As darkness falls and rain begins to fall against the windows overlooking the Pacific, Steffy paces the living room with a sense that commodity terrible is about to be. Finn steps out compactly to pick up drug from the sanitarium, promising he'll be back within the hour, leaving Steffy alone with her studies and with the creeping fear that Sheila might formally be near. Meanwhile, not far from the Precipice house, Sheila Carter stands in the murk of a narrow path leading up the hill. Her face is hardened by times of resentment and despair. Sheila has induced herself that Steffy is the only handicap standing between her and a relationship with Finn. In her mind, everything she has done, indeed the crimes, the manipulation, the violence, has been justified by her love for her son. But tonight that preoccupation has turned into rage. She whispers to herself that Steffy stole Finn from her, poisoned his mind against her, and burgled her of the family she believes she deserves. With the rain soaking through her fleece, Sheila begins climbing the path toward the house, determined that tonight she'll eventually defy Steffy face to face. Back outside, Steffy senses movement outdoors and freezes. A shadow passes the window. Her heart pounds. She grabs her phone to call Finn, but before the call connects there's a loud knock on the door. Laggedly, deliberate, nearly mocking. Steffy formally knows who it is. When she opens the door slightly, the veranda light reveals the unmistakable figure of Sheila Carter standing there with a crooked smile. The moment feels surreal, as if the entire world has narrowed down to the space between them. Sheila steps forward unasked, forcing the door open, and her voice is eerily calm as she greets Steffy like an old familiarity rather than a sworn adversary. Steffy demands that she leave incontinently, reminding her that she has a restraining order and that the police will come if she refuses. But Sheila laughs vocally, explaining that she didn't come to talk about laws or boundaries, she came to talk about Finn. The pressure inside the room thickens as Sheila begins criminating Steffy of turning Finn against his real mama. Steffy fires back that Sheila lost the right to call herself a mama the moment she chose violence over love. The argument escalates snappily, voices echoing through the house as times of abomination erupt in raw, undressed emotion. Sheila steps closer, her eyes blazing, averring that Steffy has manipulated Finn and that if Steffy were gone, everything would eventually be the way it should be. The trouble is unmistakable. Steffy realizes with nipping clarity that Sheila didn't come to argue. She came set to exclude the person she sees as the adversary. As thunder rumbles outdoors, Sheila suddenly reveals a small cutter hidden inside her fleece. The blade glints under the living room lights, transferring a swell of fear through Steffy, but she refuses to back down. She warns Sheila that if she takes another step forward she'll lament it. Sheila, still, is beyond reason. She advances sluggishly, telling Steffy that occasionally offerings must be made for family. At that moment Finn pulls into the driveway, seeing commodity is wrong when he sees the frontal door open and hears crying outside. He rushes into the house just as the battle reaches its most explosive moment. Finn shouts his mama's name in unbelief, soliciting her to stop before anyone gets hurt. For a brief alternate Sheila hesitates, her expression fluttering between love and madness as she looks at the son she has been chasing her entire life. Finn pleads with her to drop the cutter and leave peacefully, promising that they can find another way to resolve effects. But Sheila's mind twists his words into evidence that Steffy has poisoned him against her. In an unforeseen burst of wrathfulness she lunges towards Steffy. What happens coming unfolds in seconds yet feels like an eternity. Steffy grabs a heavy fireplace poker to defend herself as Sheila charges. The two women struggle violently, knocking over cabinetwork as Finn desperately tries to separate them. Sheila swings the cutter hectically, cutting Steffy's arm. The sight of blood only energizes the chaos. Finn manages to snare Sheila from before, crying that this has gone too far, but Sheila breaks free and moves again towards Steffy with intimidating determination. Instinct takes over. As Sheila rushes forward, Steffy swings the poker with all her strength. The essence bar strikes Sheila hard across the head. The impact sends her collapsing to the bottom. For a moment the room falls silent except for the sound of the storm outdoors and Finn's shocked breathing. Steffy stands frozen, realizing what she has done. Sheila lies motionless on the ground. Finn kneels beside his mama, frenetically checking for a palpitation. His hands fluctuate as he whispers her name again and again, hoping for some sign of life. But the verity becomes necessary. Sheila Carter is dead. The weight of the moment crashes down on Finn like a tidal surge. He looks up at Steffy with an admixture of heartache, confusion, and grief. Steffy tries to explain that she had no choice, that Sheila would have killed her if she hadn't fought back, but Finn can slightly reuse the words. The reality that his own mama has failed in front of him is too inviting. His vision blurs, and his breathing becomes shallow. Despite everything Sheila had done, she was still the woman who gave him life. The emotional shock becomes too important for him to bear. As Steffy rushes toward him, Finn suddenly collapses onto the bottom, unconscious from the stress and trauma. Steffy panics, calling his name and trying to wake him while also gaping at Sheila's breathless body only a many bases down. The scene is devastating: one adversary dead, one hubby unconscious, and a future ever changed by a single violent moment. Enchantresses ultimately pierce the night as exigency services arrive, summoned by Steffy's hopeless call for help. Paramedics rush Finn to the sanitarium while police secure the house and begin questioning Steffy about what happened. Early reports suggest the incident was tone defense, but the disquisition will take time. At the sanitarium, Croakers fight to stabilize Finn while Steffy waits anxiously in the corridor, her mind replaying the fight again and again. She knows she defended herself and her family, yet the cost of that survival may hang her ever. The death of Sheila Carter marks the end of one of the most ignominious villains in the history of the bold and the beautiful, but it also opens a new chapter of heartache and consequences for everyone involved. When Finn eventually regains knowledge hours latterly, the first thing he asks is whether it's true. When Steffy confirms that Sheila is gone, gashes fill his eyes, not only for the mama he lost but for the complicated life she lived and the pain she caused. He understands that Steffy acted to save herself, yet the emotional crack left before may no way completely heal. The brutal showdown becomes a turning point that will ripple through the Forrester and Finnegan families, forcing them to defy questions about fidelity, remission, and whether true peace can ever come later so important violence. As dawn breaks over Los Angeles, Steffy sits beside Finn's sanitarium bed holding his hand, both of them knowing that nothing will ever be the same again. The agony of Sheila Carter has eventually ended, but the scars it leaves before will shape their lives for times to come. The shocking death of Sheila Carter sends a massive ripple through the entire world of the bold and the beautiful, transubstantiating what began as an intimidating night of tone defense into a tragedy that will hang everyone involved for a long time. As the ambulance races through the rain toward the sanitarium carrying John Finnegan, the flashing lights reflect across the wet thoroughfares of Los Angeles while Steffy Forrester sits in the reverse beside him, gripping his hand and soliciting him to wake up. The paramedics work snappily, placing oxygen over Finn's face and checking his vital signs. One of them tells Steffy that Finn appears to have collapsed due to extreme emotional shock combined with stress, but they still need to run tests to make sure nothing more serious is passing. Steffy's mind is contending, so presto she can slightly breathe. Only an hour ago she was standing in her living room arguing with Sheila. Now Sheila is dead, Finn is unconscious, and her entire life feels like it has shattered into pieces. Back at the Precipice House, police officers precisely examine the scene of the brutal struggle. The capsized cabinetwork, the broken glass on the bottom, and the fireplace poker lying near make up a clear picture of how violent the battle came. Investigators still bandy the substantiation while another officer photos Sheila's body before it's taken away by the coroner. Indeed, the most educated investigators cannot ignore how woeful the situation is. Sheila Carter had a character that stretched across decades of chaos, manipulation, and crime, Yet the fact that her life ended in such a hopeless moment still leaves an unsettling feeling in the room. One operative remarks that Sheila sounded unable of letting go of her preoccupation with Finn, and in the end that preoccupation destroyed her. Meanwhile, news of the incident begins spreading snappily among those connected to the Forrester family. At the Forrester Creations office, Rich Forrester receives a late-night phone call from the police informing him that there has been an exigency involving Steffy and Finn. The moment he hears Sheila's name mentioned, his expression darkens with concern. Rich knows better than anyone how dangerous Sheila can be. Without vacillation he calls Taylor Hayes and tells her that commodity terrible has happened. Within twinkles they're both rushing toward the sanitarium, stewing the worst. At the sanitarium, Crocus eventually stabilize Finn and move him into a private room for observation. Steffy waits outside the door, her clothes still stained with blood from the struggle. She keeps replaying the moment she struck Sheila with the poker, wondering if there could have been another way to stop her. But deep down she remembers the look in Sheila's eyes when she dived forward with the cutter. That wasn't the face of someone who planned to leave peacefully. It was the face of someone ready to kill. When Ridge and Taylor arrive and see Steffy sitting there shaking, Taylor incontinently rushes forward and wraps her son in a tight grasp. Steffy breaks down fully, blubbing. As she explains what happened, Ridge listens precisely, his jaw gripped with wrathfulness and anguish. After everything Sheila had done over the times, he's not surprised that it eventually ended this way. Hours latterly Finn sluggishly regains knowledge. The room is quiet except for the steady beep of medical outfit. When he opens his eyes he sees Steffy sitting beside the bed, her face exhausted but hopeful. For a moment he looks confused, trying to erect together what happened. Also the recollections return, the argument, the cutter, the struggle, and his mama falling to the bottom. Finn's voice trembles as he asks the question he formally knows the answer to. My mama, she's gone, isn't she? Steffy hesitates before gently attesting the verity. Gashes form in Finn's eyes as the weight of the loss crashes down on him. His relationship with Sheila had always been sorrowfully complicated. She was responsible for inconceivable detriment, yet she was still the woman who gave birth to him. Knowing she failed during a fight with his woman creates a storm of feelings he can slightly control. Steffy tells Finn that she no way wanted effects to end like this. She reminds him that Sheila came to the house fortified and ready to attack. However, she might not be alive right now, if Steffy hadn't defended herself. Finn understands that logically, but grief doesn't always follow sense. He turns his face down, floundering to accept that the final chapter of his mama's life unfolded in such a violent way. After a long silence he whispers that Sheila spent her entire life chasing the idea of family, yet she destroyed every chance she ever had to truly be part of one. The coming morning the news becomes public. Rumors spread snappily through Los Angeles and across the fashion world connected to the Forresters. Some people reply with shock, others with relief. Sheila Carter had made numerous adversaries during her times of manipulation and vengeance. Numerous believe that her death was ineluctable. Still, the emotional risk on Finn and Steffy becomes the center of attention. Journalists begin assuming about whether legal consequences could follow. Indeed, though the early substantiation explosively suggests tone defense. Detective Baker arrives at the sanitarium latterly that day to speak with Steffy. His tone is calm and regardful as he explains that they need a complete statement to finalize their report. Steffy recounts every detail of the battle, from the moment Sheila forced her way inside the house to the alternate she swung the poker. Baker listens precisely, sometimes glancing at his notes. When Steffy finishes, he nods sluggishly and tells her that the physical substantiation supports her story. The cutter Sheila brought, the protective injuries on Steffy's arm, and the damage inside the house all point toward a violent struggle that Steffy didn't start. Although the disquisition will still be completed formally, Baker reassures her that it easily appears to be a case of tone defense. Indeed, with that consolation, the emotional damage remains. Finn spends hours gaping quietly out the sanitarium window, allowing about everything that happened between him and Sheila. He remembers the brief moments when he believed she might actually change, when he allowed she could learn to become part of his life without hurting anyone. Those expedients now feel sorrowfully naive. Steffy sits beside him, still supporting him. Indeed, though she knows he may no way completely forgive the circumstances that forced her to act. Latterly that evening Ridge returns to the sanitarium with a serious expression. He tells Steffy that the Forrester family stands behind her fully. No bone doubts that she acted to cover herself and her children. But Ridge also warns that the emotional fate may be delicate for Finn. Losing a parent, no matter how worried that parent was, creates injuries that take time to heal. As night falls again over Los Angeles, Steffy walks outside the sanitarium for a moment of fresh air. The storm from the former night has eventually passed, leaving the megacity quiet and calm. She looks up at the sky and thinks about how one moment changed everything. Sheila Carter had visited her life for times, hanging her safety and her family's happiness again and again. Now that trouble is gone ever, yet the palm feels concave because of the pain it caused Finn. Inside the sanitarium room, Finn closes his eyes and whispers a quiet farewell to the memoir he slightly understood. In that moment he realizes that the story of Sheila Carter will always be part of his life, but it no longer controls his future. The brutal showdown that ended in death has also forced him to face a painful verity. Occasionally the only way to escape the history is to eventually let it end.